I knew something was wrong when my third Amazon package in 2 weeks never showed up. But I didn't realize I was dealing with a thief until I started finding empty boxes in the HOA dumpster with my name still on the shipping labels. My name is Connor Jacobs, and I had just moved into the Riverside Meadows community in Scottsdale, Arizona, 6 months ago. It was one of those cookie-cutter suburban neighborhoods with identical beige houses, perfectly manicured lawns, and an HOA that seemed to have rules about everything from mailbox colors to the acceptable height of your grass. I'm a software engineer who works from home, so I order a lot of stuff online. Computer parts, office supplies, books, sometimes just random things I need for the house. Before moving here, I never had a single package go missing in my entire life. The first package that disappeared was a new mechanical keyboard I had ordered. It was supposed to arrive on a Tuesday. I got the delivery confirmation from Amazon saying it had been left at my front door at 2:15 in the afternoon. When I went to grab it at 4, nothing was there. I figured maybe the driver had made a mistake, delivered it to the wrong house. These things happen, right? I filed a claim with Amazon, and they sent me a replacement without much fuss. The second package was a set of noise-canceling headphones. Same thing. Delivery confirmation at 1:30, but when I checked at 3, nothing. By this point, I was starting to get annoyed, but I still thought it might be an honest mistake or maybe some neighborhood kid playing pranks. Amazon replaced that one too, though I could tell the customer service rep was getting a little suspicious of me. The third package was what made me realize this was deliberate theft. I had ordered a new ergonomic office chair because my old one was killing my back. This wasn't some small box you could miss. This was a huge package that required a signature. According to the tracking, someone had signed for it, someone with illegible handwriting that definitely wasn't mine. I was home all day. Nobody knocked on my door. Nobody rang my doorbell. That's when I started paying closer attention to my surroundings. I set up a cheap security camera pointing at my front porch, one of those basic wireless ones you can get for $40. The video quality wasn't great, but it was better than nothing. I ordered a small package, just some phone accessories, and waited to see what would happen. The package arrived at 11 in the morning on a Thursday. The FedEx driver dropped it off, took a photo like they always do, and drove away. 15 minutes later, a white Toyota Camry pulled up in front of my house. A woman got out, walked right up to my porch like she owned the place, picked up my package and walked away with it. The whole thing took maybe 30 seconds. She didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. I couldn't see her face clearly because of the camera angle and resolution, but I could see she was a middle-aged white woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was wearing a polo shirt and khaki pants, which seemed like an odd choice for a package thief. Most criminals don't dress like they are about to attend a parent-teacher conference. I was furious. I immediately downloaded the video and started trying to figure out who this woman was. I didn't recognize her, but then again, I hadn't really gotten to know many of my neighbors yet. I spent most of my time working, and when I wasn't working, I was usually inside gaming or watching movies. I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood with my phone, pretending to be exercising while actually looking for that white Camry. It didn't take long. 3 streets over, parked in the driveway of a house with an immaculate lawn and an American flag hanging from the porch, was the exact same car. I memorized the address and headed back home. A quick search of the HOA directory, which had been mailed to me when I moved in, revealed that the house belonged to Sharon Whitmore, the vice president of the Riverside Meadows HOA board. Of course it was an HOA board member. Of course. I had heard about Sharon before, though I had never met her personally. My next-door neighbor, an older retired guy named Frank, had warned me about her when I first moved in. He called her the neighborhood enforcer, the person who would measure your grass with a ruler to make sure it wasn't a quarter-inch too tall. He said she had personally filed over 60 complaints against various homeowners in the past year alone. Improper holiday decorations, cars parked on the street overnight, basketball hoops visible from the road. She was relentless, but stealing packages. That seemed insane, even for an HOA Karen. What would she even want with my stuff? The mechanical keyboard, the headphones, the office chair, random phone accessories. It wasn't like I was ordering expensive jewelry or electronics that would be easy to resell. This was just regular, everyday stuff. I needed more evidence before I could go to the police. One grainy video wouldn't be enough, especially since you couldn't clearly see her face. So I did what any reasonable person would do in 2025. I ordered a bunch of small, cheap items from Amazon and waited. I wanted to catch her in the act multiple times, build an undeniable case. Over the next 2 weeks, I ordered 8 different packages. Sharon stole 7 of them. The only one she didn't take was a package that arrived on a Sunday, which apparently was beneath her thieving schedule. Each time, the same routine. The delivery driver would drop off the package, and within 10 to 20 minutes, Sharon would pull up in her white Camry, walk up to my porch, take the package and leave. She was like clockwork. I upgraded my security camera to a much better one with crystal clear video quality and a perfect angle of my front porch. Now I could see her face clearly. There was no doubt. It was Sharon Whitmore, HOA vice president and apparently a serial package thief, but I still didn't understand why. Was she just a kleptomaniac? Was this some kind of power trip? I decided to do something that probably wasn't the smartest idea, but I was too curious and too angry to care. I followed her. The next time a package was scheduled to arrive, I waited in my car parked down the street with a good view of my house. The Amazon driver dropped off the box at 1:45. Sure enough, at 1:58, Sharon's white Camry came rolling down the street. I watched her take the package, get back in her car and drive away. I waited a few seconds, then followed her at a distance. She didn't go back to her house. Instead, she drove to a storage facility on the east side of Scottsdale, one of those big warehouse-style places with hundreds of individual units. She used a key code to get through the gate, and I managed to slip in behind another car before the gate closed. I parked far away and watched as she carried my package to a unit on the second floor, Unit 224. She unlocked it, went inside for a minute, then came back out empty-handed and drove away. After she left, I walked up to Unit 224 and tried to peek through the small gap at the bottom of the door. I could see boxes. Lots and lots of boxes. Amazon boxes, FedEx boxes, UPS boxes, all piled up inside. This woman had been doing this for a while, and I clearly wasn't her only victim. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. Sharon was probably stealing packages from multiple people in the neighborhood, maybe even people in other nearby neighborhoods. This was way bigger than I thought. I needed to go to the police, but I wanted one more piece of evidence first. Something that would make the case absolutely airtight and maybe even a little bit satisfying after months of dealing with this. I had heard about these glitter bomb packages that people made to catch porch pirates. They were basically boxes rigged with glitter, fart spray, and cameras that would record the thief's reaction when they opened the stolen package. A former NASA engineer had made them famous on YouTube years ago. I wasn't an engineer, but I figured I could make something similar with parts from Amazon and a little creativity. I spent 3 days building my glitter bomb. I bought a large box, several pounds of ultra-fine glitter in various colors, 4 small cameras with motion sensors, a servo motor, and some stink bombs that were advertised as the worst smell you'll ever experience. I rigged everything together so that when the box was opened, the servo would trigger, releasing a cascade of glitter while simultaneously setting off the stink bombs. The cameras would record everything from multiple angles. I also included a GPS tracker hidden in the bottom of the box, just in case Sharon took it to her storage unit again. I wanted to be able to track exactly where my package went. The whole thing cost me about $200 and a lot of trial and error, but when I was done, it looked exactly like a normal Amazon package. I even printed out a fake shipping label with my name and address. The hardest part was making sure Sharon would actually take this specific package and not some random real delivery. I didn't want some innocent Amazon driver getting glitter bombed. So, I decided to hand-deliver my trap to my own front porch during a time window when I knew packages usually arrived. I set it out at noon on a Wednesday, positioned my security cameras, and waited. At 12:17, Sharon's white Camry appeared. I watched on my phone as she got out, walked up to my porch, and picked up the box. She looked at the label, smiled this weird, satisfied smile, and carried it back to her car. I was recording everything on 3 different cameras now, including one hidden across the street at Frank's house. He had been more than happy to help once I told him what was going on. Sharon drove straight to the storage facility. I followed her again, keeping my distance. She parked, grabbed the box, and headed up to Unit 224. This was it. I had my phone ready to call the police, but I wanted to wait until after the glitter bomb went off. I know that sounds petty, but after months of stolen packages and frustration, I wanted her to have at least one bad moment before the cops showed up. I watched from my car as Sharon unlocked the storage unit and went inside with the box. I waited. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Then I heard it. Even from outside the unit, I could hear her scream. It wasn't a scared scream. It was a scream of pure rage and disgust. The stink bombs must have gone off. A few seconds later, Sharon came stumbling out of the storage unit, covered head to toe in pink, blue, and gold glitter. She was coughing and gagging, trying to wipe the glitter off her face and clothes, but anyone who has ever dealt with glitter knows that's impossible. That stuff gets everywhere and stays forever. She looked like a very angry disco ball. I waited until she ran down to her car, probably to get away from the smell, and then I called the police. I told them I had evidence of someone stealing packages from my home, and that the suspect was currently at a storage facility with what I believed to be dozens of other stolen packages. I gave them the address and unit number. The operator asked me to stay on the line and said officers were on their way. I stayed in my car, watching Sharon lean against her Camry, still trying to get glitter off herself. She kept looking back at the storage unit with this expression of complete bewilderment. I could almost see her brain trying to figure out what had just happened. 2 Scottsdale police cars arrived about 8 minutes later. I got out of my car and approached one of the officers, a tall guy with a serious face named Officer Martinez according to his name tag. I explained the whole situation, showed him the videos on my phone of Sharon taking packages from my porch, and told him about the storage unit full of boxes. Officer Martinez looked skeptical at first, especially when he saw Sharon covered in glitter. But when I showed him the clear video evidence of her repeatedly stealing from my property, his expression changed. He walked over to Sharon and started asking her questions. I couldn't hear everything, but I could see her getting defensive, waving her arms around, glitter flying everywhere. The other officer, a woman named Officer Chen, asked me for permission to enter the storage unit to document what was inside. I explained that it wasn't my unit, it was Sharon's, but I had GPS tracked my glitter bomb box there. Officer Martinez got Sharon to admit the unit was hers and asked for permission to look inside. Sharon, still covered in glitter and probably not thinking straight because of the stink bomb smell, said something along the lines of, "Go ahead. There's nothing illegal in there." Big mistake on her part. Officer Chen opened the unit and immediately called Officer Martinez over. I couldn't see inside from where I was standing, but I could hear Officer Chen saying, "You need to see this." Sharon's face went pale under all the glitter. She realized she had just given them permission to discover her stash of stolen goods. The storage unit was packed with packages. Not just a few, dozens and dozens of them. Some were still sealed, some were opened with their contents scattered around. I could see my ergonomic office chair box in there still unopened. There were also other people's items: electronics, clothing, toys, home goods, even some medical supplies. It looked like Sharon had been stealing packages for months, maybe even longer. Officer Martinez asked Sharon to step over to his patrol car. She started protesting, saying something about this being a misunderstanding, that she was a respected member of the HOA board, that she would never steal anything. But the evidence was literally piled up in front of everyone. There was no talking her way out of this. Officer Chen asked me to come over and identify which packages were mine. I pointed out the ones I could recognize from the shipping labels and descriptions. Officer Martinez was taking photos of everything, documenting the scene. He told me that they would need to contact other potential victims in the neighborhood, and that this was going to be a much bigger case than a simple package theft. Sharon was arrested right there in the parking lot of the storage facility. Officer Martinez read her rights while she stood there covered in glitter, handcuffed, looking absolutely miserable. She kept insisting that this was all a mistake, that she could explain everything, but nobody was listening. The evidence was overwhelming. As they put her in the back of the patrol car, she locked eyes with me. For a moment, I thought she was going to apologize or at least show some remorse. Instead, she shouted, "You'll regret this. I'll make sure you're fined for every HOA violation I can find. Your mailbox is half an inch too far from the street. Your grass was 0.3 inches too tall last month." Even while being arrested for theft, she was still thinking about HOA violations. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Officer Martinez asked me to come down to the police station to give a formal statement. I agreed and followed the patrol cars in my own car. At the station, I spent about 2 hours going through everything in detail. I showed them all my security camera footage, the tracking information from Amazon and other delivery services, the GPS data from my glitter bomb, everything I had collected over the past few weeks. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Sarah Kowalski, was impressed with how much evidence I had gathered. She told me that most package theft cases are hard to prosecute because people don't have good video evidence or they wait too long to report it. But I had clear footage of Sharon stealing from my property on multiple occasions, plus the GPS tracking that led directly to her storage unit full of stolen goods. Detective Kowalski explained that Sharon was being charged with multiple counts of theft, possession of stolen property, and potentially mail fraud since some of the packages were delivered through USPs. The mail fraud charge was federal, which meant this could get really serious really fast. I asked what kind of penalties she might be facing. Detective Kowalski said it depended on the total value of all the stolen items, but with dozens of victims and months of theft, Sharon could be looking at several years in prison. Over the next few days, the police contacted other residents in Riverside Meadows and the surrounding neighborhoods. It turned out I wasn't the only victim. 23 other people came forward saying they had packages go missing over the past 8 months. The total value of all the stolen items was estimated at over $30,000. Sharon hadn't been selling the stuff, as far as anyone could tell. She was just hoarding it in her storage unit like some kind of deranged dragon sitting on a pile of Amazon boxes. The story made local news. HOA board member arrested for stealing neighbor's packages was the headline on the Arizona Republic website. The news segment showed footage of Sharon being led out of the police station, still with glitter in her hair. The reporter interviewed several victims, including me. I kept my comments brief, just saying I was glad the police had taken it seriously, and that I hoped other victims would be compensated for their losses. The Riverside Meadows HOA board held an emergency meeting 3 days after Sharon's arrest. They voted unanimously to remove her from her position as vice president. The board president, a timid man named Gregory who looked like he was terrified of confrontation, sent out an email to all residents apologizing for what had happened and assuring everyone that the board had no knowledge of Sharon's criminal activities. I later learned from Frank that Gregory and Sharon had been at odds for months because Sharon kept trying to implement increasingly strict rules. She had wanted to ban all street parking permanently, require all homeowners to use only one specific shade of beige paint on their houses, and eliminate any outdoor decorations except during a 2-week period around major holidays. Gregory had been blocking most of her proposals, which probably didn't help her mental state. Frank had his own theory about why Sharon had been stealing packages. He thought it was a control thing, a way for her to feel powerful over the neighbors she couldn't control through HOA rules. He said Sharon had always been obsessed with order and control, and when people didn't fall in line with her vision of what the neighborhood should be, she found other ways to punish them. I didn't know if that was true, but it made a certain kind of sense. The people who had the most packages stolen were the ones who had filed complaints against Sharon or voted against her proposals at HOA meetings. I had never been to an HOA meeting, but my house had a small decorative gnome in my front garden that technically violated the HOA's no lawn ornaments rule. Sharon had sent me 2 warning letters about it before the package theft started. I had ignored both letters because I thought the rule was ridiculous and my gnome wasn't hurting anyone. Maybe that's why she targeted me. Maybe the package theft was her way of enforcing her own twisted version of justice. Or maybe she was just a kleptomaniac who used her HOA position to scout out targets. Either way, she was going to face the consequences. The legal process moved surprisingly quickly. Sharon's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the district attorney wasn't interested in being lenient. With 24 victims, video evidence, and thousands of dollars in stolen property, this was an easy case to prosecute. The DA wanted to make an example out of Sharon to deter other would-be package thieves. Sharon's preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after her arrest. I was required to attend as a witness. The courtroom was small, one of those municipal courtrooms that handles misdemeanors and preliminary hearings for felonies. Sharon sat at the defense table with her lawyer, a nervous-looking guy in an ill-fitting suit. She had managed to get most of the glitter out of her hair, but I swear I could still see a few sparkles on her collar. The prosecutor presented the evidence. My security camera footage, the police reports, photos of the storage unit, statements from other victims. It was overwhelming. Sharon's lawyer tried to argue that his client had mental health issues and needed treatment, not prison. The judge listened, but ultimately decided there was enough evidence to move forward with a trial. Outside the courthouse, a reporter from the local news tried to interview me again. I declined, but I did make a statement through my lawyer that I hoped justice would be served and that other package theft victims would see that it's worth reporting these crimes and gathering evidence. Sharon's trial was scheduled for 2 months later. In the meantime, my life slowly returned to normal. I could order packages again without worrying they would be stolen, though I kept my security cameras up just in case. The HOA board elected a new vice president, a reasonable woman named Patricia, who immediately started working to repeal some of Sharon's more absurd rules. Frank told me that Sharon's husband had filed for divorce shortly after her arrest. Apparently, he had no idea about the storage unit full of stolen packages. He told his friends at the neighborhood gym that he was done dealing with her crazy behavior, and that this was the last straw in a long line of straws. I felt a little bad for him, but also wondered how he could have been married to Sharon for over 20 years and not noticed she was stealing dozens of packages from their neighbors. The trial itself was anticlimactic. Sharon's lawyer convinced her to change her plea to guilty on most counts in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. She pleaded guilty to 18 counts of theft, 1 count of possession of stolen property, and 3 counts of mail fraud. The other charges were dropped. At the sentencing hearing, I was given a chance to make a victim impact statement. I stood up and addressed the judge directly. I talked about how the package thefts had made me feel violated in my own home, how I had spent hundreds of dollars replacing stolen items and setting up security systems, and how the stress of dealing with the situation had affected my work and mental health. I kept it short and factual. I didn't want to seem vindictive, but I wanted the judge to understand that this wasn't a victimless crime. Other victims also gave statements. One woman talked about how Sharon had stolen medication that she needed for a chronic condition. Another man described how a stolen package containing his late mother's jewelry, which was being returned from a repair shop, had caused him immense emotional distress. By the time everyone finished, even Sharon looked like she might cry. The judge was not sympathetic. He sentenced Sharon to 4 years in Arizona State Prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 years. She was also ordered to pay restitution to all 24 victims, totaling just over $32,000. Additionally, she would have to complete mental health counseling and community service after her release. Sharon's lawyer requested that she be allowed to serve her sentence in a minimum security facility due to her age and lack of prior criminal record. The judge agreed to make that recommendation, but made it clear that the final decision would be up to the Department of Corrections. As Sharon was led out of the courtroom, she didn't look at anyone. She kept her eyes on the floor, her shoulders slumped. The woman who had spent years terrorizing the neighborhood with HOA violations and stolen packages was finally facing real consequences for her actions. After the sentencing, several of my neighbors came up to thank me for pursuing the case and gathering all the evidence. Patricia, the new HOA vice president, told me that the board was working on reforming their rules to be more reasonable and less invasive. She said that Sharon's arrest had been a wake-up call for everyone about how power can be abused, even in something as mundane as a homeowners association. Frank invited me over for dinner that night to celebrate. His wife made an incredible pot roast, and we spent the evening talking about everything except HOA drama and package theft. It felt good to just relax and be part of the neighborhood community without any underlying tension. Over the next few months, I received my restitution payment from Sharon. It was enough to cover all my stolen items plus the cost of my security system and the glitter bomb materials. I donated half of it to a local charity that helped victims of property crime. It felt like the right thing to do. I also started attending HOA board meetings, something I never thought I would do. But after everything that happened, I realized it was important to stay involved and make sure the board didn't become a place for power-hungry people to abuse their neighbors. Patricia was doing a great job as vice president, but vigilance was important. The neighborhood changed after Sharon's arrest. People seemed friendlier, more willing to talk to each other. It was like everyone had been holding their breath for years, waiting for Sharon's reign of terror to end, and now we could finally exhale. Block parties became a regular thing. People actually waved when they drove by. It felt like a real community instead of a police state ruled by HOA regulations. I kept my garden gnome, of course. Nobody said a word about it after Sharon was gone. In fact, I noticed several other neighbors started putting out lawn ornaments too. Nothing too crazy, just small decorative touches that made the neighborhood feel less sterile and cookie-cutter. My security cameras stayed up, but I didn't need to check them obsessively anymore. Packages arrived safely at my door. Life was normal again. Well, as normal as life in a suburban HOA community could be. About a year after Sharon's sentencing, I received a letter from her. It had been sent from the prison where she was serving her time. I debated whether to open it or just throw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was surprisingly coherent and, dare I say, almost apologetic. Sharon wrote that she had been diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder and some other mental health conditions during her time in prison. She said she had been undergoing therapy and was starting to understand how her need for control had spiraled into criminal behavior. She didn't make excuses for what she had done, but she tried to explain that she hadn't fully understood how much harm she was causing at the time. She wrote that stealing the packages had started as a way to teach people lessons about following rules, but it had become an addiction. She couldn't stop herself even when she knew it was wrong. The storage unit full of packages had been her secret, something she could control when everything else in her life felt chaotic. At the end of the letter, she apologized to me directly. She said she knew a letter couldn't undo the damage she had caused, but she hoped I could eventually forgive her. She also mentioned that she would be up for parole in 6 months and was terrified of facing the world again. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt a little bit of sympathy for her, recognizing that mental health issues had played a role in her behavior. But another part of me remembered the months of stress and frustration, the violations of privacy, the entitled attitude she had displayed even while being arrested. Forgiveness is complicated. Maybe someday I would be able to fully forgive Sharon, but it wasn't going to be today or tomorrow. For now, I was content with moving on with my life and letting the justice system handle the rest. Sharon did get parole after serving just over 2 years in prison. I heard through the neighborhood gossip network that she had moved to a different city in Arizona, somewhere far from Scottsdale. Her ex-husband had sold their house in Riverside Meadows and moved to Nevada to be closer to his adult children. The house sold quickly to a young couple with a toddler who seemed nice and normal. Life moved on. I got a promotion at work, started dating someone I met through a hiking group, and generally became more involved in my community. The whole package theft saga became a story I would tell at parties, complete with the glitter bomb details that always got a good reaction. The Riverside Meadows HOA became much more reasonable under new leadership. They reduced the number of rules by almost half, eliminated the most ridiculous restrictions, and started focusing on things that actually mattered, like maintaining common areas and organizing community events. Patricia served as vice president for 2 years before being elected president when Gregory retired. She was fair, sensible, and actually cared about making the neighborhood a better place to live rather than just enforcing arbitrary rules. The whole experience taught me a lot about standing up for yourself and not letting people get away with bad behavior just because they have some minor authority. If I had ignored the package thefts or just written them off as bad luck, Sharon would have continued stealing from me and other neighbors indefinitely. By gathering evidence and involving the police, I had helped stop a pattern of criminal behavior that had been going on for months. It also taught me about the importance of community. The support I received from neighbors like Frank, the cooperation of other victims who came forward with their own experiences, and the eventual reform of the HOA board all showed me that most people are good and want to do the right thing. Sometimes it just takes one person to speak up and take action. The glitter bomb, in retrospect, was probably not the most mature way to handle the situation. I could have just gone straight to the police with my video evidence and tracking information, but I don't regret it. There was something deeply satisfying about knowing that Sharon had that moment of complete shock and confusion when she opened that box. It was petty, sure, but after months of dealing with her theft and arrogance, a little pettiness felt justified. I still order a lot of packages online. It's just convenient, and I work from home so I don't have to worry about deliveries sitting outside all day. But I'm more cautious now. I have good security cameras. I track all my deliveries carefully, and I've gotten to know my neighbors well enough that we look out for each other's packages when someone is out of town. The garden gnome is still in my front yard. I named him Frederick, after Frank, who had been such a good neighbor through the whole ordeal. Frank thought it was hilarious and bought me a second gnome as a housewarming gift when I celebrated my 2-year anniversary of living in Riverside Meadows. Now, Frederick has a companion named Gertrude. They sit together near my mailbox, tiny ceramic rebels against the old regime of ridiculous HOA rules. Sometimes I think about Sharon and wonder how she's doing. I hope she got the help she needed and that she's living a better life now. But mostly I'm just grateful that chapter of my life is closed. The months of stolen packages, the investigation, the trial, all of it became a story with a clear ending rather than an ongoing source of stress. The detective, Sarah Kowalski, sent me a thank you card after the case was closed. She wrote that my thorough documentation had made her job much easier, and that she wished more victims of property crimes would put in the effort to gather evidence. She also mentioned that the case had led to an increase in package theft reports in the area, with more people willing to come forward after seeing that the police would take it seriously. That was gratifying to hear. One of my frustrations throughout the whole process had been feeling like package theft was treated as a minor crime that wasn't worth investigating. But when you add up all the stolen items, the time and money spent replacing them, and the emotional impact of feeling unsafe in your own home, it becomes clear that these crimes matter. Sharon stole over $30,000 worth of property from her neighbors. That's not minor. That's serious theft that deserved serious consequences. The local news did a follow-up story on the case about 6 months after Sharon's sentencing. They interviewed me again, and this time I agreed to talk more extensively. I wanted other victims of package theft to know that they should report it, gather evidence, and not just accept it as an inevitable part of modern life. I demonstrated my security camera setup and showed how easy it is to set up basic surveillance for under $100. The story got a lot of attention online. I received messages from people across the country who had similar experiences with package thieves. Some of them had successfully caught their thieves using methods similar to mine. Others were still dealing with ongoing theft and asked for advice. I did my best to help, recommending security cameras, GPS trackers, and always filing police reports even when it seemed like nothing would come of it. A few people criticized me for the glitter bomb, calling it vigilante justice, or saying I should have just let the police handle everything. I understood their point, but I maintained that I had every right to protect my property with a harmless booby trap on my own porch. The glitter and stink bombs didn't hurt anyone. They just provided undeniable evidence of Sharon's theft and gave her a taste of the frustration she had been causing others. One unexpected outcome of the whole situation was that I became somewhat of a minor celebrity in the home security community. A few YouTube channels that focus on home security and dealing with porch pirates reached out to interview me. I did a couple of interviews, explaining my setup and the investigation process. It was weird being recognized occasionally at stores or restaurants in Scottsdale, but most people were just supportive and shared their own package theft stories. The HOA community also changed on a broader level. Other neighborhood associations in the area started reviewing their rules and procedures after hearing about what happened in Riverside Meadows. Nobody wanted to be the next community with an out-of-control board member abusing their position. Several HOAs implemented term limits and recall procedures to prevent any one person from accumulating too much unchecked power. Patricia and I became friendly through the HOA board meetings. She was genuinely trying to make the neighborhood better and appreciated having involved homeowners who cared about reasonable governance. We worked together on a new package delivery system where neighbors could opt in to a secure package locker system installed near the community mailboxes. It wasn't mandatory, just an option for people who wanted extra security. About half the neighborhood signed up for it, and package thefts in the area dropped to almost zero. I also started a neighborhood watch program, something that should have existed already but had never been organized. We used a group chat app to alert each other about suspicious activity, share security camera footage when relevant, and just generally look out for each other. It brought the community closer together and made everyone feel safer. My relationship with packages changed after everything that happened. I used to think of them as just convenient deliveries, a normal part of modern life. Now I think about the whole system behind them. The delivery drivers who work long hours, the tracking technology that tells us exactly when something will arrive, the vulnerability of leaving valuable items on doorsteps. It's a system based on trust, and when that trust is violated, it affects more than just the immediate victim. Frank retired from his job at an aerospace company about a year after Sharon's arrest. He told me that the whole situation with Sharon had made him realize life was too short to spend it worrying about work stress and HOA drama. He and his wife started traveling, visiting national parks and spending time with their grandchildren. But they always made sure to be home when packages were scheduled to arrive for neighbors who were out of town. Frank became the unofficial neighborhood package guardian, and everyone loved him for it. The new couple who bought Sharon's old house, Matt and Emily Richardson, became good friends of mine. They had no idea about the house's history when they bought it, and they were shocked when neighbors filled them in. Emily joked that they should have gotten a discount for buying the infamous HOA Karen's house. but they were happy there. Their toddler son, Owen, loved playing in the front yard, and they didn't care at all about HOA rules as long as they kept their lawn reasonably maintained. I helped them set up security cameras when they moved in, just as a precaution. They appreciated it and said they felt welcomed by the neighborhood in a way they hadn't expected. That's what Riverside Meadows had become. An actual community instead of a collection of houses monitored by an authoritarian HOA board. My dating life even improved indirectly because of the whole situation. The woman I started seeing, Bethany Turner, found the whole story hilarious and impressive in equal measure. She was a journalist who appreciated the investigation and documentation aspects of what I had done. We met at a hiking group event, and she approached me because she recognized me from the news coverage. Our first date conversation was almost entirely about package theft, HOA horror stories, and the ethics of glitter bomb revenge. Bethany wrote a feature article about HOA abuse for a national magazine, using my story as one of several examples. She interviewed me extensively and also talked to other victims of HOA overreach across the country. The article got a lot of attention and sparked conversations about the need for HOA reform and better oversight. Some states even started considering legislation to limit HOA powers and provide more protections for homeowners. It was surreal seeing my experience become part of a larger national conversation. I had just been trying to stop someone from stealing my packages. I never intended to become a poster child for HOA reform. But if my story helped other people stand up to abusive board members, or made HOAs think twice about implementing ridiculous rules, then something good came out of those frustrating months. The restitution money I received was eventually paid off in full. Sharon made her payments on time from prison, probably because failure to pay would have affected her parole eligibility. I used my portion to upgrade my home office with a better desk, a comfortable chair, and some nice lighting. Every time I sat down to work, I was reminded that standing up for yourself and pursuing justice actually works sometimes. I also invested in a really good coffee maker because I figured I deserved something nice after everything. Bethany laughed when I told her that the coffee maker was purchased with stolen package restitution money, but she agreed that it made great coffee. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Work was going well. My relationship with Bethany was developing nicely, and the neighborhood was peaceful. Packages arrived safely. The HOA board sent out reasonable notices about actual important things like street maintenance and community events. Frederick and Gertrude, my garden gnomes, stood guard over my front yard without any complaints from anyone. I still checked my security cameras occasionally, more out of habit than actual concern. The footage was usually just boring recordings of delivery drivers, neighbors walking their dogs, and the occasional squirrel. Exactly what home security footage should be: boring and uneventful. The only reminder of Sharon and the whole package theft saga was a framed photo I kept in my office. It was a screenshot from my security camera showing Sharon covered in glitter, standing outside the storage unit with that expression of complete bewilderment. Bethany thought it was petty to keep it displayed, but she also admitted it was pretty funny. I told her it was a reminder that persistence pays off, and that sometimes justice is served with a side of glitter. Frank saw the photo once and laughed so hard he almost spit out his coffee. He said it was the most perfect moment of karma he had ever witnessed. He also told me that several neighbors had printed out similar photos and kept them as reminders of the day the neighborhood got its freedom from HOA tyranny. The Arizona Department of Corrections updated their website periodically with information about inmates. I checked Sharon's profile once, about a year after she was released on parole. It showed she had completed all her required programs and was no longer under supervision. I hoped that meant she had successfully reintegrated into society and was living a normal, non-criminal life somewhere. I never saw or heard from Sharon again after that letter from prison. She never returned to Riverside Meadows, which was probably for the best. The neighborhood had moved on, and her presence would have just reopened old wounds. I hope she found peace and got the mental health treatment she needed. But I also hope she understood the real harm she had caused and never did anything like that again. The glitter bomb video footage, which was evidence in the criminal case, was eventually released to me after the case was closed. I considered posting it online, where it probably would have gone viral, but I decided against it. Sharon had already faced legal consequences for her actions. Public humiliation on the internet seemed unnecessary and potentially cruel. I kept the footage private, though I did show it to close friends who got a kick out of it. Bethany wrote another article, this time about the ethics of public shaming in the age of social media. She interviewed me about my decision not to post the glitter bomb video publicly. I explained that while I wanted Sharon to face consequences, I didn't want to contribute to internet mob justice. The criminal justice system had handled it appropriately, and that was enough. Not everyone agreed with my decision. Some people thought I should have posted the video as a warning to other potential package thieves. Others said I was being too soft and that Sharon deserved all the public humiliation she could get. But I stood by my choice. Revenge wasn't the goal. Justice was. The Riverside Meadows HOA board invited me to speak at an annual homeowners meeting about my experience and the importance of community vigilance. I was nervous about public speaking, but I agreed because I thought it was important. About 60 homeowners attended, and I talked for about 15 minutes about recognizing package theft, gathering evidence, and the importance of reporting crimes to police. During the queue and a session afterward, several people asked about the glitter bomb. I explained how I built it and emphasized that it was only deployed on my own property as a tracking device and evidence-gathering tool. I warned people to be careful about booby traps, as they can be illegal in certain circumstances. My situation had worked out fine, but I didn't want anyone to get in legal trouble trying to catch a thief. Patricia thanked me for my presentation and announced that the HOA board was creating a new community security committee that would focus on preventing crime and improving neighborhood safety. She asked if I would be willing to serve on it, and I agreed. It felt good to be part of the solution rather than just a victim of the problem. The security committee met monthly and implemented several new initiatives. We organized a bulk discount for homeowners who wanted to purchase security cameras. We worked with local police to arrange neighborhood patrols during high package delivery times around the holidays. We created an information sheet about what to do if you're a victim of property crime. Small things, but they made a difference. Package theft in Riverside Meadows became virtually non-existent. Whether that was because of Sharon's arrest serving as a deterrent, the increased security measures, or just dumb luck, I didn't know. But it was nice to live in a place where people could trust that their deliveries would be safe. I started ordering packages again without that underlying anxiety. A new book I wanted to read. Order it and don't worry. Some new software I needed for work. Click buy and know it will arrive safely. That simple peace of mind was something I hadn't fully appreciated until it was taken away and then restored. Bethany moved in with me after we had been dating for about a year and a half. She loved the neighborhood and thought Frederick and Gertrude were charming. She also appreciated having her own packages delivered safely, especially since she was always ordering research materials for her articles. We talked about getting married eventually, maybe buying a bigger house together somewhere else. But for now, we were happy in Riverside Meadows. The neighborhood had become home in a way I hadn't expected when I first moved there. The package theft situation, as frustrating as it was, had forced me to become involved in my community and build real connections with my neighbors. Frank and his wife invited us over for dinner regularly. Matt and Emily from Sharon's old house became part of our friend group, and their son Owen loved playing in my backyard. Patricia and her husband joined us for occasional game nights. The neighborhood had transformed from a sterile collection of identical houses into a real community with genuine relationships. That transformation was the real victory, more important than Sharon's arrest or the restitution money. The package thefts had been a symptom of a larger problem, a neighborhood that was so focused on rules and appearances that it had forgotten about the people living there. By standing up to Sharon and pushing for change, I had inadvertently helped create something better. I sometimes wondered what would have happened if I had just ignored the package thefts or moved away to avoid the problem. Sharon would probably still be stealing from people. The HOA would still be implementing ridiculous rules. The neighborhood would still feel cold and unwelcoming. By choosing to fight back and pursue justice, I had changed not just my own situation but the entire community. That realization was empowering. One person, gathering evidence and refusing to be a victim, had made a real difference. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wanted to just give up and move somewhere else. But persistence had paid off in ways I never could have anticipated. The story of Sharon Whitmore, the HOA vice president who stole packages for months until a glitter bomb and police report got her arrested, became a local legend. New residents were told about it as a cautionary tale. Delivery drivers mentioned it when dropping off packages, saying they had heard about the neighborhood that caught a serial package thief. It became part of the community's identity, a story about standing up against petty tyranny and winning. Years later, I still lived in that same house in Riverside Meadows. Bethany and I got married in a small ceremony in our backyard, with Frederick and Gertrude the garden gnomes decorated with little bow ties for the occasion. Frank officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for our wedding. The whole neighborhood was invited, and it felt like celebrating not just our marriage but the community we had all built together. My career continued to thrive, and I never had another package stolen. The security cameras stayed up, more as a deterrent than anything else. The Riverside Meadows HOA remained reasonable and focused on actual community improvements rather than petty rule enforcement. Patricia eventually stepped down as president and was replaced by another reasonable person who continued the reformed approach to HOA governance. Sharon Whitmore faded into memory, a footnote in the neighborhood's history. I never saw her again, never heard what became of her after her parole ended. Sometimes I wondered if she ever thought about what she had done, if she understood the impact her actions had on so many people. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. She was the past, and I was focused on the present and future. The glitter bomb remained my favorite part of the story to tell. Whenever someone asked about how I caught Sharon, I would describe building the device, tracking it to the storage unit, and hearing her scream when it went off. People always laughed at that part. Justice served with glitter and stink bombs felt appropriately absurd for such a bizarre situation. Connor Jacobs, software engineer and package theft survivor, had become Connor Jacobs, community advocate and minor local celebrity. It wasn't something I had planned or wanted, but it felt meaningful. Standing up for yourself matters. Gathering evidence matters. Pursuing justice matters. And sometimes, a well-placed glitter bomb matters too.